Hunting or Bust, the journey onward by Master Adelan, Chapter 51, Lurking Shadows. And so Noctix asked us for help last semester with that crime boss, and we want our help of spying on the White Fang. You know what that means, right? It means trouble seems to gravitate towards us, and that moniker we have might actually be appropriate for us. No, Nora jumped up on Weiss's bed, ignoring the hair's indignant cry before cheering. It means next semester it'll be Juniper's turn to lead us into the fray. She turned around at the unamused faces of her friends before she slumped and frowned. Well, it's no fun if we never get a chance. Blake coughed and brought attention back to the matter at hand. Can we please focus? Nora pouted and plopped down on the bed before the faunus went back to point over the map. This is the map of Bill with the locations of the stores hit over the last several months. When Wilkes still stole goods throughout the city, there was a steady loss of dust compared to how much was coming in. We stopped his organization, but even after he's gone, the amount of dust being stolen has jumped exponentially. All the major theft is being handled by one man, Roman Torchwick, Ruby said with as much of a scowl as she could muster. That's right. Blake nodded before sliding an image of the criminal's mugshot over the map as well. Originally, people suspected that he was just making a move by stealing all the dust available around the city, but then we saw at the docks that it wasn't just a power play, but a massive plot with the White Fang to gather as much dust as possible. So, we don't know exactly what they're doing, but if the White Fang are working with a scumbag like that to collect dust, it can't be good. Exactly. Blake looked around at the people joining the mission. We need to find out what they're planning and what it is they're doing with all these stolen goods. So, Blake pushed up on her knees and stood up to look at her comrades. We need a plan. I'm not sure they would risk storing all the dust in one place, and not in Bell, especially after the docks and the Wilkes bust. It made sense after the crime boss got busted moving his products through a charity location in Bell. Local forces became much more alert about any kind of large criminal activity that could keep root in the city. No one wanted to risk getting caught with their pants down again. If Torchwick learned from that mistake and knows that the city is on even a higher alert with the incident at the docks, then he probably isn't staying in Bell as long as he used to. He probably has small teams of people hitting the stores for him before they can get caught by the police. Lucia raised some good points as Yang smirked and crossed her arms. If it's about finding any shady dealings in Bell, I'm pretty sure I know a guy to talk. I'll pop over downtown, strut in, work some of that patented Yang charm, and have him eaten out of my hand. If she's going to be utilizing any of her charm, then we should ensure someone goes with her so she doesn't wreck the place. There was a signed agreement among all of them as the blonde boxer huffed and crossed her arms. Weiss held a hand at her chest. Since the Shadina's company is bound to keep account of the inventory being stolen, I'm certain I can use my connection to get a ledger of what was taken. We can use that along with the thefts of Blake to track to see if we can find a connection of where it happened most often. What else can we do? Well, Blake spoke up. I remember some locations back during my time with the White Fang. Areas used to rely new missions. They were also used every now and then as a recruitment rallies for new members. If they still adhere to the old schedule like before, then there should be one coming up. And if I can sneak into the rally, I can try and see if they say anything about their new location or what they're planning or what their plans are. Blake expected some opposition to her proposition, but all the look she was getting made her feel like she had just grown a second head. What? Are you sure that is a great idea? That's the best idea? Pyrrha voiced their uncertainty while looking at the dark-haired girl. You said yourself that you left the White Fang on bad terms, correct? Should you be risking your safety by going in there and trying to hide in a crowd? There's nothing risky about it. People wear the grim mask the entire time during those sessions. They never take them off until after it's over. Blake casually shrugged. With my face covered, I'll just be another dark-haired girl with ears in a crowd. As long as I don't draw attention to myself, then I can sneak in. There's still no reason to risk letting you go in there by yourself. She looked over at Naruto walking to her side and smiled. I'll come along. Her expression twisted, and he noticed it before shaking his head. Even if you're hiding in a crowd, it'll be safer if at least we go together, and except for maybe Kiba on a good day, we're the only ones here passing for funness. You do understand how dangerous it sounds letting two traitors walk back into a White Fang meeting, right? The danger isn't lost on us, the cat noted, but if we want to make any headway against them, then we have to be willing to face that danger. So I'll ask one more time, even if you don't want to take this risk. She didn't say any more, as she saw no hint of doubt or worry across their faces. Okay, looks like we've got a game plan, Yang announced with a grin. Ruby already called going with Weiss to hang off her shoulder. Her little sister slid up to her partner and grinned, while the crabby girl sighed exasperately. Blake and Naruto are going to go check out what they can from the White Fang meeting, and by the looks from the looks I'm getting, there are a few of you that want to make sure they make it there safely. So she pounded her chest. Who wants to come and have a good time with me? Hunting. When we get there, a few people are probably going to be surprised to see me. Last time we caught him outside without all his henchmen, and the red and white paint in his asses that follow him like starving puppies. This time we're going right into the thick of it, so let me handle the talking. Yang called out over her shoulder before smirking. It might seem like things are getting a little hostile, but we just have a report, so no worries. After that, we'll probably have some time, so if we can find any other contacts, let's try those. Or hell, we could just go drinking. Still no response from the person behind her. Yang pouted. You know, I think I miss the you that fake smiled and talked with everyone. At least you could hold a conversation. Please, focus. On the road. Pfft, no fun. Yang scoffed as Bumblebee ran the corner and skidded over the sidewalk. She felt Duchia's arms tightened around her as she sighed. There better be drinks when we make it there. Hunting. Wow, Ruby awed once she stepped up closer to the CCT tower. I forgot something. I forgot sometimes just how big that this thing is. Kind of scary, actually. The younger girls grinned and turned to her partner. Do you think anyone ever tried climbing it? I'm not going to dignify that with a response. Ruby frowned while Weiss strode up beside her to look at the massive structure as well. The sneaky girl couldn't help the smug smile come to her face before looking back at the hooded girl. Just so you're aware, the one in Atlas is even bigger than this one. Seriously? Ruby marveled and then beamed towards her partner. Weiss, you have to show it to me, please. Sure. If you're ever in Atlas, I'll give you a tour. No, silly. I mean, you have to show me around when I finally get around to visit Atlas with you. Not sure what time you think that's going to happen, but it won't be this one. Ruby deflated and her eyes almost start to water as Weiss just ignored her whimpering and headed for the CCT. Come, we're just wasting time out here bickering, and we need to contact the others with any information we've acquired. I can probably get all of it myself if you just want to. No way. Ruby interrupted and chased after her girlfriend before she could abandon her. I might not have all the fancy schmancy and highbrow big pocket connections that you have. Weiss glower got deeper and deeper with each added exaggeration as Ruby gave her own smug look. But I grew up with teachers. I specialize in cramming and find as much information as possible in a short amount of time in an almost desperate fashion. If you think I'd be impressed with the skill you earned from procrastinating when you're greatly mistaken. You go get that info from the SDC. Ruby stood forward proudly. I'll get some my own way. Time to show you that when push comes to shove, nothing will distract Ruby Rose from her mission. Not even Penny. What? Weiss followed Ruby's gaze across the field and quickly spotted the familiar bob of orange hair. The hair still tilted her head as she tried to remember why it looked so familiar before it dawned on her. Oh, that's the girl from before the break, isn't it? The one that helped you at the docks. Penny, you can go ahead, Weiss. I'll catch up. Ruby chased after her odd new friend and called her out. Some people gave her odd looks as she kept running. Penny! She turned around. Yes, that's me. How can I? She froze as she saw Ruby approach her and stop just a foot away from her. The freckled girl opened and closed her mouth before nervously speaking. I'm sorry, stranger, but I think you have the wrong person. I'm not sure who this Penny person is, but that's not my name. Sorry, I mean stranger, so if you'll excuse me. Wait, Penny. Ruby cut the ginger girl off before she could take another step. I need to talk to you, please. You just left that night on the docks without saying goodbye. We were so worried. The hooded girl took a quick examination of the freckled girl and saw she had no visible marks or scars. Are you really okay after that night? You look like you got hurt really badly after that faunus guy threw you into those containers. Oh no, I'm fine. Penny rubbed a spot on her head. I just needed some patchwork done and I was all. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Penny, please. Ruby grabbed the other girl's hand and gave it a small squeeze to get her attention. Penny looked back at her for a moment, and when she saw the look in her friend's eyes, she stopped attempting to leave. The young leader released her hand and pleaded, I need to talk to you. I want to make sure you're okay. You really helped us that night with fighting against those jerks, but they're still out there, and we think they're planning to do something else. So when you went missing that night, I was really worried. If you're fine, then that's great, but please tell me what happened. My father came to pick me up. He knew I was fighting at the docks and was furious with me. Penny looked aside with guilt when she saw Ruby's confused expression. I promised I was going to walk around the city and see the sights for myself. That I got mixed up in a confrontation between some local students and a group of powerful, dangerous criminals like the White Fang was not something he was happy to hear. He had a lot to say to me that night. I'm sorry for getting you in trouble, Ruby murmured before smiling and standing up straighter. But I'm really glad you're okay. You might have gotten in trouble, but if you weren't there with us, I'm pretty sure that would have ended up very badly for us. If you didn't fight off that big funniest guy, then he would have started chasing after us. Almost certainly, and considering the force behind how hard I was thrown into the shipment container, I'm sure with your wicked aura, your brain would have been liquefied and skull smashed into fragments, so I was happy to help. Penny gleefully responded to her friend's gratitude as Ruby chuckled uncomfortably. Ruby, you mentioned the bad people back then might be doing something. What's your basis on that theory? Because my friends think people like that wouldn't stop just because they nearly got caught once. We think they're still doing something in the city. Ruby looked around suspiciously before leaning in towards the freckled girl and whispering, that's actually why we're out here today. We're trying to do some research and find out if there have been any big crimes or thefts that Torchwick and the White Fang have committed, trying to figure out what they might be planning. Oh, you mean kind of like the big robbery and theft of Atlas weaponry that happened a few days ago? What? I mean, nothing. Forget I said anything. No, Penny, wait, please tell me more. Hunting? So, did you really spend your vacation finding out everything you can on these guys? Didn't I ask you to relax a little? Is this really the time to be engaging in small talk? Blake retorted as they walked around the edge of the city looking for any sign of the White Fang meeting place she had been looking for. Though Cat Funness remained vigilant while speaking, shouldn't we be more focused on the task at hand? The task at hand is exactly what I'm asking. So do you need something to calm me down? Feel like my stomach is turning in on itself. Blake looked back at the whiskered blonde and noticed a drop of sweat dotting his temple while his ears lay flat on his head. Her eyes softened as she realized just how nervous he must have felt taking this job on with her, and if she was being honest, she was trying to ignore the knot in her belly as well. She took a deep breath and got his attention. I couldn't get any of my thoughts off of them. One day I decided to clear my head and write down whatever came to mind. And well, here we are. He repeated, looking around at their surroundings as they passed a small street to enter a more open area of warehouses and storage buildings. He chuckled. Don't know if I should blame your need to do good or your nerdy desire to keep reading. Blake turned and glowered at the blonde as he just chuckled at her reaction. She was annoyed at the jest at her expense, but she also felt a sense of relief fill her that they could laugh despite the possible danger they'd soon find themselves in. A small smile took her face as she spoke. Well, if I remember correctly, some of that nerdy quality rubbed off of you last semester. How did you cope with the next book in the story? His laughter cut off immediately. Blake spared him a look and saw Naruto's strained expression before he looked aside and mumbled to himself, I may have bought the collection at a bookstore, Mr. That's what I thought. Blake tried to hide her amusement as the fox started grumbling to himself. She was thankful to calm her nerves before they walked into the fray. She looked around at some of the surrounding buildings and took a deep breath in relief. We have the GPS on our scrolls, so the others have our position at all times. We're only going to be going in there to get information, and if we get into a fight, we'll be ready. She smirked. Considering you can use your semblance now, I think we're set. Yeah, let's be careful with that last one, okay? The tense tone in his voice and the words he used when he said it immediately grabbed her attention. She looked back and saw the way he tried to avoid her gaze before it clicked. You still can't control it? Look, it took a lot of training just to get as far as covering my arms, one step at a time. Naruto whined and let out his arm before making a fist. If you saw all the bruises and damages that went into getting this far, then you'd congratulate me for being able to do this much. The big horse guy was a jerk, but his technique was definitely worth figuring out. He didn't get a response and looked back to see he passed her. Blake, he stared at the wall in silence as a rush of memories flooded back at her. The new people coming in and the sounds of veteran members cheering and booing, taking chalk and marking the spot as she raised her hand and slid 3 fingers down to match the markings down into the wall, claw marks like the ones adorned on the new flag of the White Fang. Is this it? This is it. She peeked around the corner and saw a young Faunus couple approach a well-dressed man at the door. They looked like they were conversing before the man smiled and waved them in. Blake let out a long exhale and reached up to undo her bow. Would be against the whole point if she tried to walk in while hiding her features. I suppose we should go. I just realized this is like the second time I've seen your ears. How is that fair? Shut up. He got off one last chuckle before they rounded the corner and approached the man. She stepped up to him, not recognizing him or his features. Probably a new recruit after she had left. Sadly hoping he wouldn't recognize them of anyone list that she spoke up. Is this the place? To new additions, I assume. They nodded and he smiled. Then this is the place, my brother and sister. He opened the door and beckoned them in. Welcome. As she and Naruto walked in, and also the door closed behind them, they saw a long hallway in front of them, and also the ground of dozens, if not hundreds, of voices overlapping in what must have been the main hall. She looked to her side and grabbed 2 masks from the table by the door. Once again, she was assaulted with the terrible memories and reminders of what she had done. A misguided attempt to help people, wrongfully believing what she might have been doing was going to pay off in a big way. Turning her back on her parents and watching her lose Toby walk away in shame. It felt like a lead burning a hole through her chest. I'm sorry, she finally said while they were alone and looking up at Naruto. And she saw an apathetic look in his eyes as she had been lost in staring at the masks. I know how much you hate reliving your past, and having to come here again and help me must feel like a big step backwards. But you and everyone else here with me, and I'm thankful for that. I might not show it, but I really am. I know, he answered simply and with a smile, and she hated to watch it fall as she held out one of the masks for him to take. With a heavy sigh, he took it in hand and secured it to his face. He lowered his hand and looked at her through the slits of the mask. How do I look? His demeanor changed. When he put on the mask, he let himself fall back into what he must have felt like when he was still a member. He raised his shoulders, put a little weight into his voice. Even his ears looked more still and steady. He didn't even appear like himself anymore. Like you're ready to fight for the cause. That was not as reassuring as she thought it would sound. She put hers on next. And me? Don't even recognize you? Good. Then let's go. Hunting? They're in. She kept an eye on the 2 dots as they made their way into the warehouse. She switched the function to act as their radio to the other team. We'll be on standby in case any trouble goes down. Until then, only use this to communicate to each other for emergencies. Understood? Roger. The picture of Nora cheered before her scroll turned off completely. It was a little worrying that it was Nora that responded, but she couldn't fault her teammate for her enthusiastic response. Pyrrha pocketed the scroll and sat up on her knee. I suppose all we do now is wait. I feel lightheaded, John mumbled before looking between the two of them. Do either of you feel lightheaded? No, not really. Tintin leaned over the side of the building and shrugged. We're not even all that high up. Come on, man. You went through the initiation and scaled that big building on our last bust, right? Buck up. Not lightheaded from the height. Lighthearted in the sense that I'm just not realizing that we're on what we're doing. The blonde boy anxiously sputtered before looking between the brunette and redhead. I mean, have you two ever fought the White Fang before? Like, are they easier than Grimm or harder? I could really use some reference to how much trouble this might be. I've never actually fought them either. The bun-haired brunette looked up in thought. I remember Naruto's story about this time during the White Fang. He said he trained and fought with a few of them back when he was a kid. So weaker than he is now. He patted the stick bag. He patted the stick bag over her back. If they're still like that, then I'm sure we'll be able to handle them. However, if we look at it from the opposite angle, the Uchiha group we encountered last semester has been having trouble handling recently. Pyrrha unfortunately played devil's advocate, and she saw the nervous, almost frightful look on their faces at that prospect. So if any of their members are at a level equal to theirs, oh, that makes me queasy. John sat down before his layers could give out from beneath him. He still couldn't help how his hands started to feel cold and clammy as his imagination went wild. What if they really were facing people as strong as those guys that followed Sasuke's brother? He didn't exactly fare very well against those three the first time around, and an entire army of those people. But I think only the top members would have strength like that. John looked up at Pyrrha after she added on that statement before Tintin nodded. Yeah, they say they were caught off guard by one of those special guys Naruto told us about. The rest of the guys, I bet, are just people that joined and got some basic training. If that's the case, then I'm sure they can't beat us. And even if they do have numbers on us, a smile came back onto his face as he looked between Pyrrha and Tintin. They shared the look and nodded in agreement. They didn't need to hear the rest of it because they knew if it came down to a fight, they'd be ready because they'd all stand together. John felt his nervousness ease and his heart slow down. He reached for his scroll. You want to play a game? I think I have solitaire. Pyrrha laughed. I think only one person can actually play that at a time. Oh, I know. Tending him over to his side. Open up the store first. I found a new game. Hunting? Well, he couldn't fault Yang. She said they'd be surprised when they arrived. She just didn't expect the moment they walked in, the whole club would go silent and every gun in the building would be trained on them. And he meant them because due to his proximity, he had immediately been put in the crosshair as well. Despite looking down several gunmen barrels, he still looked to his side and saw Yang grin before shrugging her shoulders. They love me, I promise. Seriously doubt that. Guns down, all of you. Do you want to start another fight with this psycho? The voice came booming over them as the crowd of thugs parted. A familiar man made his way up to them in grimace. Yang just grinned wider as Junior pulled his hand down his face. I felt the shadow of death on my shoulder and knew instantly that you were nearby. And look, you brought your little asshole with you too. Had to match you, Junior. Yang bravely strode up to the man, and despite his greater stature and numbers, he was the one to sweat and step back. She smiled and playfully tilted her head. I want to talk, so will you invite me to the bar, or do I got to work my way there? She silently mulled over, but the easier answer came to the bar owner before Yang lost her patience. He scowled for a moment before quickly stuffing it down, and stepping aside, he jerked his head to the bar before Yang cheered and skipped after him. Junior, you're such a gentleman. They Kinsmen watched their boss and tormentor walk off together before all eyes turned to the straggler. The Uchiha stood there for a good minute before shaking his head and making to follow after them. Junior went around the corner and glared at Yang as Yang took a seat and Sasuke stood. What do you want? Well, I'd like a drink. Yang winked and held up 2 fingers. 2, one for me and one for the manservant. As she chuckled and looked back at Sasuke before smiling. Strongest one you got, please. You better be paying for those. Junior, can't they be complimentary for your favorite customer and her friend? You aren't a customer. You never pay. Junior bemoaned. I'm trying to go straight here, which means I'm not just here to give you free drinks. Like you could give up the danger of the underworld and get real, man. You know, I had cops sniffing around here a few months ago, asking questions about if I had any idea about Wolf's operation and the stuff he was peddling. I only got by because I stopped doing business with that asshole. Junior's gaze narrowed angrily between them. I bet I have you to thank for all the red tape too. Me? Couldn't be. How could you accuse us like that? Maybe because the day you came threatening to break my inventory that night he got caught. Not a very firm delivery of confidence. Now, are you gonna pay up or not? Some yen dropped on the counter and Junior looked over to see Sasuke had dropped it. The owner looked at him for a moment before taking the money and nodding before going back to the rows of drinks. Yang looked up at him. We'd probably get more info out of him if you didn't rile him up so much. Meh, Yang shrugged casually. I can't help it when he makes it so easily. A little poke and I can stir up a fight. She turned in her seat and leaned back against the bar before smirking. You guys should be ready in case I choose to poke you in the tournament. Really? A small smirk came to his face. Should we be talking about this now of all the times? Bar talk helps pass the time. So you guys ready to lose when we face off? Because without a good game plan, you got no chance of pulling up in front of us. Well, if it's about a strategy, don't worry. Naruto already pitched one to us. He remembered the risky plan his leader had proposed after classes one day. It sounded like a lot of work, and it was going to be a pain. But it was a good idea. He was willing to test them. Oh, care to share? He spared her raised eyebrow, and she found it, and definitely more tight-lipped than you used to be. Okay, let's move on to another topic then. She grinned and leaned over to his side. What's up with you and Waisa? Sasuke's eye turned into a glare, but the blonde girl merely took it in stride, realizing he wasn't going to make her drop it, and it would be faster just to answer. He looked forward. There's nothing up. Well, that's not true. You two used to talk with each other all the time, and that was an accomplishment for someone like Waisa. I bet Ruby was even jealous that you were getting along so well with her, but then you just stopped hanging out, and it was after the whole business with your brother and your old friends, so you were probably in a bad place when it happened. Her smile lowered into a more apathetic expression. So, what happened? I told her to go. She came to see me before I went into surgery. He looked down at the hands he carried wrapped up in tight bindings. The wounds had healed, and burns were gone by the numerous scars still marred the flesh. He looked back to Yang. I was angry and upset about what Itachi had done, and Weiss tried to speak to me. She tried to tell me that there was nothing I could have done, and I told her to leave, and that was it. Oh, Yang shook her head. That's never a good sign. You shouldn't tell a girl like Weiss to leave. But to be fair, you blew up your hands and were in a lot of pain, so she might have been at fault as well for coming to have a conversation with you then. So you're both to blame. She smiled. Maybe you both should say sorry. I don't think that's the problem. Me neither, but I'm glad to see I won't have to explain that to you. Yang said, look, Weiss is a weird one. She saw you more than just a friend, but like a companion or a compatriot or whatever, and so someone with similar circumstances to her. Someone from a family with a checkered past and a bad public opinion. Sorry, he silently accepted the fact. With you, she was able to see someone who wasn't tied down by the family name. Plus, she felt relaxed around you and could open up with you. But then your brother came along, and she felt like everything you had shown her was a lie. It wasn't all a lie. I know, and believe me, I understand why you might want to act differently after all the stuff that happened in the past. But how you act now and what you showed us when we met is someone different. We're getting used to it, but for Weiss, who thought she knew you so well, it's probably jarring. Yang shrugged. She needs to understand your circumstances and reasons for it too, but just think of it as two hard-headed people arguing and refusing to speak to each other, so it might actually help if you did apologize to each other. Yang looked her friend over as he just looked down at the counter after she finished. Junior came back over and dropped the two bottles off that Yang quickly took. She held one out to Chica as he looked up at her smile. I can get not wanting to dwell on it, and even wanting to be left alone, but about it. But no one wants to get to feel hurt forever, right? Sasuke stayed silent but accepted the beverage offered to him. They knocked the glasses, and he quickly went to gulping the drink down. Yang laughed. I take it back. I can totally get used to hanging out with you now. She drank from hers as well before grinning at the bartender. So Junior, down to business. What can you tell us about your best buddy, Roman Torchwick? First off, he ain't my friend, and why would you even come to ask me about him? Yang tapped her chin and thought, if I think back to the night we met, I remember you talking to an overly dressed bum with neon orange hair. Now maybe that's just a coincidence, but you just said you don't believe in those, didn't you? Plus, from what my adorable baby sister told me, she kicked around a few thugs working from Torchwick that looked suspiciously like your goons. Another coincidence. You know now that I think about it, maybe I should crack my knuckles a little against your guys who thought it'd be a good idea to attack my sister. Don't waste your time, Junior sighed. You won't be seeing those guys anytime soon. They're gone. Gone? They should have looked. What do you mean gone? I mean it in the obvious grown-up way. They couldn't get the job done, so Torchwick scrapped them like yesterday's trash. Junior scowled between the two students. That's why I'm telling you not to bother asking me about him. I've stopped trying to work with the guy since he off Wilsk. What? Sasuke stood up straight. How do you know he killed Wilsk? Do you have proof? No, but the old geezer croaked and Torchwick swooped in and takes his place pretty effectively too. Not only is that not a coincidence, that's what we in the business call pretty fucking obvious. Junior growled. So I tried to get my guys back, but I find them all taken out, and not in the usual bullet in the ear kind of way either. They were taken out efficiently and ruthlessly. When I saw that shit, I decided then and there I wasn't gonna mix myself up with that guy anymore. Taken out? Could it have been done by members of the White Fang? Junior scoffed at their quarry. I'm not up to date with the White Fang, but even I know that they just pick up some pissed civilians and put some weapons in their hands. So no, kid, it wasn't the White Fang that did it. Hai Shang picked up his washcloth and walked. Word of advice, Blondie: just drop this one. Ain't worth your life. Yang and Sasuke looked between each other as the older man's warning hung in the air. Hunting, what's her name? Neon. How'd you meet him? Her knees met my eyes. Aggressive girl. I like her already. Can we not talk about this? Kiba begged the girl that actually laid on his back and kicked her legs up with a hum. We're supposed to be waiting in case anything goes wrong with Naruto's side of things. But we're not doing anything now, and I refuse to surrender to boredom. Nora boasted while lying on Kiba's back as the two boys stared out across the district. The ginger girl stretched her arms out, which means that if we have to talk about your love life, we shall. Stop her. Please stop her. I can't, or rather, I won't. His only hope of relief, abandoning him as the pink-eyed boy remained vigilant. The more she's concentrated on you, the more I can focus on this. You illogical bastard! Nora rolled off Kiba's back and plopped down between him and Ren. She looked at the brunette gleefully. So what's your plan? You're gonna mark her from afar and have a relationship based totally inside your mind? No, Kiba said. I thought about asking her out. Oh yes, that's our boy. Such a little grown up. He growled as Nora playfully pulled on his cheek before she patted her chest. And don't you worry, because Mama Nora and Papa Ren will be there with you every step of the way and help you seal the deal. No, please don't. I'd rather you stay as far away from this as possible. No can do. She covered her heart and looked up fondly. You see, ever since I patted your head on that first day, the three of us have been destined to hang out and work together, bound together by a mortal coil. We're in it to the end. How did I get stuck in with that fate? Kiba mumbled before looking over at the babbling girl to the only sane hope he had. Ren, seriously, talk to her and put some sense. His hand raised and stopped the both of them from talking. They looked at Ren as he narrowed his eyes and stared across the building. He sensed some malice intended for a brief moment before it vanished, but he swore he saw, for just a moment, off an angle from the moon's light, a glare from glass. A sniper. What? We're being watched. Ren sat up. I think they heard something whiz between them and watched some of the concrete by Ren's speed break from a bullet. With that warning, all three of them went silent. They waited for another sign before they could make a move or retreat. They had to trust their aura would be able to take the brunt of the next shot, and they'd be able to handle the pain so they could escape. I found him. Just a bunch of kids hanging out on the roof. You can stand down. I'll handle this. They heard a voice from behind them and looked back to see a boy come climbing up the hallway. A walkway to the roof. He had sharp black hair leaning towards one side, and he looked to be their age is slightly older. He lacked any notable animal characteristics, so they couldn't tell if he was honest. He had bags under his eyes and a malicious smirk as he stepped towards them. And what might you kids be doing hanging around in a place like this? Ain't it a school night or something? Or might you just be soliciting? Who are you? Ren demanded as Kiba and Nora stood up. Don't really need to bother with names. You won't be needing mine, and I won't remember yours. He smirked before holding out his hands with his palm facing towards them. They spotted what looked like a red glass dot in the center of his hands as the air around it started to distort. If you guys just stand there, I'll make it faster and put up a fight and roll. Nora frowned and lowered her knees as Ren narrowed his eyes, therefore chuckled darkly and stretched his hand further. Kiba pulled out his scroll. They found hunting us. Beep. Kiba. Kiva, Tintin yelled into her scroll as her group stood up in surprise. They aren't responding. And Pyrrha looked out over the district and saw a small cloud of smoke racing from a building. They're being attacked. We need to go help them. John was already heading for the ladder before looking back. Come on, if we hear John. The blonde knight barely had a chance to wonder why they looked worried before a foot landed in the crook of his neck. It slammed down his collarbone and floored him into the gravel of the building's roof. He gagged and gasped for air before looking up at the crooked figure attempting to finish him off. Ha! Tintin knocked the attacker's hand back with her staff before they could strike the down leader. She forced the cloak to form back before slipping in to follow up the attack, spinning her ranged weapon around her shoulder before bringing it back around to attack. The assailant blocked it with a long wide weapon and effortlessly parried her strike. They forced her back, knocking her off balance for only a moment, but long enough to slip into her guard and strike her in the chest with a swift kick. Tintin was knocked back, but Pyrrha leapt over her friend to engage the individual. Her javelin slid along the wide weapon before she shifted it into a sword to swing for her head, but they deftly leaned back and flipped backwards, kicking for Pyrrha's blind spot at the same time as she blocked it solely on reflex. She charged, not giving them a chance to get their footings as she lunged for their chest, but the moment their foot hit the ground, they jumped high over Pyrrha's strike and nearly vaulted over the champion completely. She turned just in time and raised her shield to block the rapid kicks before they could land. Pyrrha extended Milo back into javelin form and swung it in a wide arc that forced her opponent to jump back to escape her range. They landed back on their feet before whipping their hands out and forming multiple projectiles at her. And Pyrrha raised her hand and activated its polarity to alter the path of the bullets, but realized that they weren't made of metal. She panicked and raised a quote to block them before the projectiles collided to her feet. She stared down at the white objects and realized they weren't bullets at all. They looked like bones. The champion finally got a look at their attacker, a slightly older boy with pale skin and a bleached white hair. Two red dots marked his forehead, and his cold, lifeless green eyes bore into hers. Pyrrha narrowed her gaze and raised her sword and shield to face the imposing man. She felt Tintin lift herself up and joined her while John slid to her side as well. The older boy raised his other hand to show a white mass form into the palm of his hand. A point started to extend from its center before forming into a sharp weapon to match the one in his other hand. He raised them both and pointed them at her in a challenge. She hoped her friends could handle things without their help, because they were going to need to focus on their own adversary. Hunting. Blake, did you hear that? Naruto looked up after hearing a momentary boom from outside. What was that? I don't know, but shh. Her eyes narrowed behind her mask as a figure stepped onto stage. They're starting. Brothers and sisters, we're happy to see you join us on this day. The veteran white-fanged lieutenant with torn sleeves greeted the crowd as the recruits cheered him. You know our cause. You know our purpose. You know what our aim is. To one day make everyone know that the Faunists are not a race of people to be underestimated, but we've had to take steps to ensure that we can make that change possible. And in order to do that, we have had to change our approach recently. We had to ask for help from unlikely sources. An uproar started to cry out from the crowd. The already joined members looked bewildered, while the recruits expecting a rally for Faunists were outraged. But the two infiltrators stood in complete silence with the roaring audience, because Blake and Naruto were completely focused on the swarmy grin of the orange-haired crook on stage. Wow! Torchwick chuckled to himself. Tough crowd. End of chapter 51.